This is the International Peace Coalition. Thank you all for joining us today. This is our 113th meeting that we've had consecutively. My name is Anastasia Battle. I'll be your moderator, as well as Dennis Small and Dennis Speed, my co-moderators. And we have a pretty intense lineup today, especially given the situation of the starvation and genocide happening on the Palestinian people. And we've had a number of very important discussions over the weekend happening in the UN, and as well as a number of reports that are coming off of important meetings that have been going on this past week. So we want to get started. I just want to remind the people who are joining today why we created this forum, because quite frankly, there's been a lack of discussion amongst the peace movement, and we wanted to create a forum so everyone of the peace movement can have this dialogue, coordinate our activities, and work together from whatever philosophy you're from, culture, language, religion. We want to work with everyone who wants to see true peace in the world. So we are very thankful for everyone who has joined us for 113 weeks, and for the new people who are joining us today. And please, if you are new, feel free to introduce yourself during the discussion period, where you're from, what organization you're with, and any activities that you're doing. Before we get started, just the people who are watching, whether that's over the broadcasting or on the Zoom right now, please take a moment to share this invitation with your organizations, your friends, your family, other like-minded people who are committed to true peace. Let's continue to build this process up around the world, and we're going to have a very important discussion today that I don't think you'll want your friends to miss. So to start off, I'd like to ask Helga Zepp-LaRouche, the founder of the Schiller Institute and the initiator of the International Peace Coalition, to start us off. Please go ahead, Helga.
Yes, hello to all of you. The world situation is becoming so absolutely fast-moving and wild that one cannot avoid the suspicion that we may be approaching what you could call the final storm of the strategic situation fairly soon. It may have been actually triggered off already by the sanction and tariff war declared by President Trump against pretty much the rest of the world and the reaction to that. And as important that is, I would nevertheless like to start with the situation in Gaza, because that is an element of the perfect storm as well, because the ability or the lack of ability of the world community to stop something which is now, even in the mainstream media, after 2 years, characterized as genocide, and unbelievable details are known to the whole world community. Nevertheless, the world so far has been unable to stop this. And I have to start with that, because if we cannot remedy this ongoing genocide in Gaza, I think that is the mirror of the moral condition of humanity as a whole. And we may not, we may fail the moral test of our own survivability if we cannot remedy this in the short term, because people are starving as we are talking here, and it is a question of a very time when everybody will be dead or displaced from Gaza. So I think that that is a very important issue. And I want to report on something which I think we should discuss in this meeting, and that is a report which was delivered by UN Special Rapporteur Francesca Albanese at the 59th session of the UN Human Rights Council session in Geneva on the 3rd of July, where she introduced a 24-page report basically naming the corporations who are complicit because they are profiting from the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And this is quite a shocker, but I think she provides quite some details how about 60 corporate actors, 48 of which she names by name, arms manufacturers, banks, tech companies, energy firms, academic institutions, and others who are all profiting in one way or another from the ongoing situation. Let it be that they supply machines, that they are operating the AI programs, which is helping in the targeting and automatic decision making in the killing of Palestinians who are trying to get to the food. I mean, it's an unbelievable story, and it is obviously not to be denied. And I think this report should deserve international scrutiny and investigation. Now, obviously, it hit such a raw nerve that Marco Rubio immediately, once he found out about this report, put sanctions on Francesca Albanese. I mean, this is unbelievable. But there is no question that many elements of what she's saying in this report cannot be denied. For example, the fact that the so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is a death trap and has been, complicit in luring people to try to get desperately to food to then be shot. I mean, it's an unbelievable story. So I think that, we have to somehow come up with a way of, there was the UN security, the UN meeting on the Palestinian statehood. This was not on the highest level. However, it was obviously important that it took place. In the meantime, another 28 nations have called for the Palestinian state. Canada, for example, has been put under pressure from the Trump administration for all of a sudden changing the attitude on the question of the Palestinian state. Now, obviously, we have been saying this for a very long time that given the fact, given the complexities of the situation, the fact that Israel could not do what they are doing without the backing of the United States, that I personally think that the two-state solution, and in combination with the Oasis plan, however, can only be realized if there is a new international security and development architecture, because I think that any effort to have a solution on a partial problem like the Middle East, given the combination of the powers operating there, will not function. So my renewed effort and appeal is to really think definitely how to put the international security and development architecture on the table, because that is also extremely relevant in respect to the Ukraine crisis. But before I come to that, let me just say that President Trump has obviously created havoc in the international economic situation by his tariff war. What was celebrated as the biggest deal ever by Trump himself after he met with EU Commission head Ursula von der Leyen in Scotland last Sunday. Now, I mean, that deal is for sure extremely bad for Europe. It's devastating for the German economy, for the East European economies. And, it's definitely going to hurt there. But it is already falling apart, because what supposedly was an agreed deal is now being debated, because the White House claimed that part of that deal was that the European Union is buying American LNG for the next 3 years worth 750 billion. That would make it 250 billion every year. Now, the EU is saying afterwards that they are not having the competence to say that, because whoever buys energy, that is a matter of the state and the industrial corporations or the individual firms. So that is hanging in the air. Then the deal is also supposed to involve other investments, because Trump had claimed that the European Union agreed to have 600 billion additional direct investment in the United States. Now, afterwards, the EU says, no, the 600 billion are part of this 250 per year. And in any case, we cannot decide that because these investments is a matter of the private investors. Also, the White House claimed that, the most of the weapons for the European armament will be bought in the United States. Now, the EU says that's not really what we agreed upon because these weapons have to be bought in Europe. Also, the EU says the agreement on the tariffs of 50% on aluminum and steel, we don't want that. We want to go back to the old system. And also concerning the health certificates concerning pork and milk products, they don't agree. So it seems to me that, while von der Leyen clearly capitulated full-fledged, and that way, she puts into question the whole EU, because the whole argument why we need such a gigantic bureaucracy in Brussels was always that individual nations are not strong enough to, to be to measure up to other world players like China, Russia, the United States. But the first time this comes to a test, von der Leyen completely, utterly fails to defend the interest of the European member countries. So why have an EU bureaucracy when they're not capable of defending your interest? But that is just a tiny element, because if you look what the tariffs are now doing to the individual BRICS members, where for totally political reasons, the United States is now imposing 50% tariffs on Brazil. Why? To free Bolsonaro. That's a political question and not a trade question. And, there is now a huge fight between the United States and India because India is not giving up buying energy from Russia. And they have been slapped on with a 25% interest rate. So that I think this, is already creating total havoc, but it's also clearly targeting the BRICS. Now, remember that all of that is taking place where the initial hope that President Trump would remedy the situation with Russia is looking increasingly, big question mark. First of all, his supposed dealings with British Prime Minister Starmer, sending weapons again to Ukraine. Has Trump forgotten that it was the British role in the Russiagate which ruined his first presidency? So it is not clear. Is he forgetting that? Is he playing a game? Is he really angry at Putin, which he says now many times? In any case, the coalition of the willing armament policies and their unrestrained effort to, try to divide Russia into many pieces and defeat Russia has caused Foreign Minister Lavrov to write an article which was published in Rossiya Gazeta at the 50th anniversary of the Helsinki Final Act on European Security, where he says Europe is becoming the Fourth Reich. Germany and the entire European Union are becoming a Fourth Reich because of their unrestrained and their unrestrained armament and militarization. Now, if Russia, who fought the what they call the Great Patriotic War in the Second World War against the Nazis, if they are now saying that Germany and the EU are in that tradition, I think this is very worrisome, and everybody in Europe should have sleepless nights, because if that policy is not changed, we are moving very close to war. Now, Lavrov also reached out with an olive branch by saying, that there needs to be a new European security architecture and that the Europeans do have a place at the table of such a new architecture. However, only if they abandon the dictate and their colonial instincts. So, then naturally you have the unbelievable statements by the commander of the European and African forces, General Donahue, who basically said the United States and NATO would be ready to immediately separate Kaliningrad from Russia and basically occupy it, which, is Russia. It's a part of the actual Russian state, and therefore regarded as an utmost threat to the vital interest of Russia. Now, he was not called back by neither Defense Secretary Hegseth nor by Trump. So the big question is Trump backing that? That would be devastating. And, because that is, really only one tiny step away from an open military conflict. Now, obviously, all of this is taking place in light of the second batch of documents released by National Defense Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard on the
I believe, did Helga cut out for you?
to ruin the first prevent the victory of Trump in the first term and then ruin his second term. And in the meantime, Senator Chuck Grassley has basically also said that there is evidence of a weaponization of the FBI under the Obama administration in an attempt to prevent and then ruin the Trump presidency. So that normally you would say would be a top item of scandal in the mass media. However, they have been completely silent about it and basically only quoting Obama, calling it ridiculous. But these are just some of the elements which show you that the world order and the world situation is completely out of shape and is moving very, very clearly into what I can only see, if not remedied quickly, by reintroducing some order, moving to the final storm. And that means we have to increase our efforts to move to solutions. And the only solution, in my view, is a new security and development architecture. So that's my initial remarks.
Great. Thank you, Helga, for situating us today for the discussion. I just want to also mention there's a little bit of internet buffering on your end, and we could understand what you were saying, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on your end so you knew that. So we're going to go into the various speakers that we have lined up today, which I just put the agenda in the chat. We are going to make a slight adjustment given a couple of technical problems that we're having at the moment, which will resolve very soon. And I just want to remind people if we can keep remarks to about 10 minutes or less, just given that we have quite a number of speakers and also some exciting reports today as well. So next, I would like to go to Mossi Raz, who's a regular participant of the International Peace Coalition, a former Knesset member and former director of General of Peace Now, and former Israeli paratrooper. And thank you so much for all the work that you're doing in Israel, Mossi Raz, especially given the situation right now. Please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Anastasia. The situation is becoming more and more difficult. Of course, war is never one-sided, but it becomes more and more one-sided. Yes, the war started with a terrible massacre that Hamas committed, the terror organization Hamas committed in Israel, raping people, killing people, and taking hostages, which is a war crime, war against humanity, and still having 50 hostages, still starving them. And on the other side, we talked about that a lot, the terrible humanitarian situation in Gaza. More than 60,000 people were killed, most of them innocent. Starvation, I think, probably not the majority of the people in Gaza, but of course there are people who starve. There were even people who were starving to death. And domicide, when 10% of the houses in Gaza are not existing anymore. Coming to that, I see the declarations of the President Macron and the Prime Minister Carney, and I think they go in the right direction. First, they say Hamas has to release the hostages. Yes, they are right, because keeping the hostages and more than that, the torture that they are passing, the starvation is a war crime. Second, they say, I'm not saying that it's chronologic, yes. Second, they say we must demilitarize Hamas, but of course this has to be not in force, because we cannot do that by using force. It has to be according to the Egyptian plan. At least this is my understanding. I'm not saying that they say that. Third, the end must come to an end. The war must come to an end. Stop killing. Yes, it is very close to one-sided because Israel is very powerful, but still, in the other side, even yesterday night, the Hamas launched missiles towards civilians in Israel. So it's not 100% one-sided. And this war has to come to an end. No more suffer, not to Palestinians, not to Israelis, not to anybody else. And of course, that includes withdrawal from Gaza. Not having Hamas there. And actually, this is Macron and Carney, each of them privately said, Hamas cannot rule Gaza anymore. But the way to do that is not by force. And recognition in Palestinian state. Now, of course, at the end of the day, the recognition in Palestinian state is nice, not necessarily it's going to head to Palestinians who were attacked by settlers in the West Bank, or Palestinians who were attacked by the Israeli army in Gaza. But this is important declaration. This is important declaration that shows us that the future of this area is by two states, because we have here two nations that both of them are, I would say, indigenous nations. Those two nations are more or less the same number of persons. It's not that important, but more or less the same number. And of course, in an utopic world, maybe we could live together in the same state with full rights for everybody, but it doesn't seem that it can work under this situation, and this is why we have to go to two-state solution. Yes, I know that there are extremists in Palestine and in Israel, and maybe they are the majority in both societies, I'm not sure, that oppose that want to eliminate the other side. But I think that we have to use the support that we have in Israel, in Palestine, and all over the world to this idea of two states, in order to compensate Israel for that. President Macron and others said that this is the key to normalization between Israel and Arab states, which of course I support. I support normalization between all the states in the world. And even President Macron said that he had agreement of the president of Indonesia that in the minute France recognize Palestine, they will recognize Israel. I think it's important. I think it is important. Now, yes, we see that Israel, it's not only the government, even the majority of the opposition in Israel still opposed to that. Yes, we see that at least the official US, Trump is opposing to that, and we see other states in the world who oppose to that, but I don't see any other alternative. We saw in the last 2 years the most terrible war that we have seen in this area ever. Maybe if I compare it to wars in Europe, it's a very small war, yes, but compared to us, Israelis and Palestinians, it's the most terrible ever. For Palestinians and for Israelis, both of them. And this is why we must bring an end to that. And an end cannot come with using more and more force. Both sides tried the force, and yes, Israel is much more powerful. This is why Israel is making more damage, killing more people, not because it's Israel is worse than Hamas, not, but is more powerful, and have to think about that. And to stop this, to stop this killing, I hope that international leaders will find the way to make it happen. It's not that easy because the immediate reaction is, it's not your business. But this is the business of all the world. This is a humanitarian issue when people are dying, being Israelis or Palestinians or Ukrainians or Russians or whoever, Thais or Cambodians or whoever. We all have to stop that. And I really hope that we can reach soon to a kind of a deal between Israel and Hamas to end the war, to release the hostages and Palestinian prisoners. And after that, Hamas will obey and Israel will obey to the Egyptian plan to start building back Gaza. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mossi Raz, for giving your views and perspective of how Israelis are viewing the situation, as well as what you've been organizing in that process. I'd like to go to Ray McGovern next, who's former CIA analyst and co-founder of the Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. He's a regular participant in the IPC and a very important voice in intervening for peace. Please go ahead, Ray. You have the floor.
Thank you, Anastasia. Can I be heard?
Yes, you can. We can hear you loud and clear.
Good. Well, I want to thank Helga for her very interesting and disturbing introduction about the state of the world, and also Mr. Raz for bringing us up to date on what's going on in Israel. I would simply say that the emphasis is exactly where it should be, that my country is enabling genocide and forced starvation is something that I cannot sleep over. I remember that, when Bishop Desmond Tutu was alive, he visited Palestine, the West Bank, Gaza. And when he came back to South Africa, he said, you know, apartheid here was bad, but it's worse over there. Can you believe it? It's even worse than apartheid in South Africa. He also said, you know, in these circumstances, it is not possible to be neutral. To be neutral is to be on the side of the oppressor. Do not blanch before the word, the oppressor. And one other quote comes to mind here, which keeps me going. It was a rabbi, Rabbi Heschel, who marched during Vietnam who is a real paragon of example for the rest of us. What he said is, look, when things like genocide happen, not all of us are guilty, but all of us are responsible. Okay. Acquiescence in evil is worse than doing evil itself. We know that from the Third Reich. We're talking today about a possible Fourth Reich. My God. So that's what I'll simply say to underscore the seriousness of the moment and the fact that those of us who are not yet engaged, those of us who have been really, well, let me use my favorite Noah principle, okay? Now, please listen carefully. It's very, very, very simple. No more awards for predicting rain. Awards only for building arcs. And that's what this forum has been for all these years to me and to others. So let's figure out how to get off our couches and build some arcs. Whatever we can do is more than we think we can do. Let's stretch ourselves out. Now, with respect to chaos and uncertainty in the world, it obtains here in the United States very much as well. Mr. Trump is under great pressure because of the Epstein scandal. There's good reason to believe that not only is he named in the Epstein process, but that he was a participant in it. What does that mean? Well, it means lots of things, lots of scurrilous things. But I have to tell you that to me, my God, it's evil squared. If you have Trump supporting genocide in Gaza, in part, and some of my friends who know about Israel more than I do are saying that most of his motivation is because he doesn't want Netanyahu to blackmail him with the Epstein files. My God, that's heinousness squared, okay? But that's the situation. He has to face that, and it came to the point where the head of the House had to dismiss people early to avoid a vote on this Epstein affair. Meanwhile, as Helga also mentioned, we have all these revelations from the head of national intelligence, which show with chapter and verse, not only that the deep state, and by the deep state in this case, we mean not only the intelligence agencies, we mean the mainstream media, and we mean the Democratic Party, that they all joined together, the three factions there, to make sure that Trump didn't win in 2016, and then when he won anyway, to emasculate him. And I used that term advisedly, to make sure that he couldn't possibly do anything positive toward Russia. And that's what hangs in the balance now. It has been clear to me, at least, from public statements by the Russians, and I take them seriously, going out on a limb saying, look, we think that Trump is a person we could deal with. We think that he's actually sincere about wanting to do a deal on Ukraine. Well, they had been saying that up till about this past week. And Lavrov, as has been mentioned, has also extended something of an olive branch. But the statements coming out from our generals, my God, and other factors make me believe that the Russians are really more afraid of what's going to happen, whether it's a, wag the dog sort of thing because of Trump's internal domestic policies or pitfalls, or whether it's something accidental. They're on tenterhooks. And as Scott Ritter has pointed out, they have even warned about the possibility of nuclear war under these circumstances. Now, Scott looks more at military capabilities than intentions. That's his job. He was a military analyst. I look at intentions. And intentions up till now have persuaded me that if Trump had any flexibility at all, he would do a deal on Ukraine. He'd recognize sotto voce the Russian victory, but he would ask Putin to help him put enough lipstick on that pig of defeat so that he could come back and say, well, I finally solved Ukraine. Now we can go on to other things, my God. At least Ukraine seemed to be soluble. Now I don't know. Now he's under such pressure that I just don't know. I did a piece last night, actually, on the latest revelations from actually Senator Grassley. And this is a positive element, and I'll finish with this. And Grassley has been a tool of the machine. He's supposed to be overseeing what happens in the Department of Justice and also in the intelligence community. But his concept of oversight has been overlooked. As a matter of fact, in 2021, he did his own tweet and he said, my God, the Department of Just Us, like JUSTUS, the department he's supposed to be overseeing, has done it again. In this case, he was complaining about this FBI lawyer who lied through his teeth to justify monitoring one of Trump's associates, lied through his teeth, falsifying a FISA application. So he was saying he won't get any jail time, and indeed he didn't get it. So it was the Department of Just Us. Wow, mirabile dictu. What happened yesterday? Grassley says, "Oh, the FBI and the CIA asked me to declassify this very damaging, very, very damaging report from the fellow John Durham, who was supposed to be investigating. Took him 4 years to yield a very anemic sort of report. Now we have more iron pills, so to speak, to fix that anemia. And I would suggest, if I might, that you look at my piece on Consortium News. It's just being published just about now to show you the depth of the trouble that Trump is in now that there's an establishment that is going against the establishment. My God, what are the odds? The odds are not good for the people telling the truth. So we need to be aware of that too. I've spoken long enough. There are more important speakers this morning. Thanks again, Anastasia and Helga, for having me on. It's always good. I always learn a whole lot when I listen to the others on this program.
Thank you, Ray, for being on and sharing your wisdom with the rest of us around the world. We greatly appreciate it. So we will continue. Next, we have, actually, let me pull this up. There's a little bit more that I failed to put in the agenda. We have Luiz Erthal, and I apologize if I'm completely butchering your name. He's the editor-in-chief of the Brazilian newspaper Todo Palavra, and organizer of the BRICS press meeting. And this is an event that brought together journalists and media from the Global South and Brazil on the eve of the Rio BRICS Summit and proposed the creation of the BRICS Big Tech. So thank you for joining us and welcome. This was a very exciting meeting that we're coming off of from Brazil.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. I would like to greet everybody. I'd like to especially greet Mrs. Helga Zepp-LaRouche and to thank my friend Tim Rush, who I met just last month here in Brazil. And through him, the invitation to participate in this meeting of the International Peace Coalition. Tim and I together covered the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, and also the event which I organized in Niterói of the press organization of the BRICS met, and various media, communications media of the countries coming from the global majority met in order to draft the document, which is called the Letter from Niterói, which proposes, among other measures, the creation of a tech bank of the BRICS. This was raised and presented in the popular conference during the BRICS meeting and with representatives of all the countries there. I must admit that the results of the BRICS summit in Rio surprised us, pleasantly surprised us. We were somewhat pessimistic given the opening position of Brazil taken at the Kazan summit last year, where all of the Brazilian representatives vetoed the participation of Venezuela, which was a clear demonstration that the Brazilian government was bending to pressure of the Biden administration. Lula had a debt of gratitude with the Biden government, which opposed the coup d'etat against Bolsonaro to prevent his being inaugurated in 2022. The organizing of the Rio summit, not at the end of the year, but in the middle of the year, gives us the indication that Brazil was not going to really prioritize the BRICS, but rather the COP meeting, which would occur at the end of the year in the Brazilian Amazon region, November of this year. However, the final results of the Rio summit of the BRICS were very positive. The Brazilian government maintained a firm position leading the meeting and making fundamental proposals moving towards a new world economic and development order, such as having joint payment means, which would be independent of the dollar, which has become a powerful weapon of the hybrid collective warfare waged by the West. The energetic condemnation of the BRICS of the genocide of the Palestinian people was also an important aspect of the meeting. However, if it is true that the results of the Rio summit were positive for us, it is also the case they were not so. More broadly, in fact, this was said even before the final conference occurred. I was with Tim in the press center when after the meeting, the President Lula gave a press conference, an interview, and he responded harshly to the initial statements by Trump, in which he defended Bolsonaro, attacking one of our Supreme Court justices, and Trump threatened to impose sanctions on Brazil. From the beginning, Lula has energetically defended the country's sovereignty. And in this way, he has united the Brazilian people over recent days and weeks. With the confirmation of the 50% tariff on Brazilian products exported to the United States, it's quite evident that Brazil has become a priority target of Trump's in his hybrid war against all of those who are opposed to the interests of the United States empire. Brazil finds itself and is located in the American continent, which the United States government considers its backyard And Brazil has a strategic position and can serve as a bridge for the expansion of the BRICS into the Western Hemisphere. Last year, Brazil proposed the entry of Argentina into the BRICS, but Milei pulled Argentina out of the BRICS. And now Brazil is proposing the entry of partner nations into the BRICS. We hope for the day will come when the United States joins the BRICS, but all of this is not accepted by Trump. The United States government is launching its attack against the Brazilian economy and is trying to get its hands on the wealth of our nation, such as our rare earths, which are the second largest reserves in the entire world. But Trump finds himself with an unexpected resistance because to want to seize the riches of the earth, the rare earths and the minerals of Brazil is a problem because the Constitution guarantees that the Brazilian government has control over the benefits of everything that is in the subsoil of the country. So his attempt to destroy the Brazilian government by associating itself with the fascism of Bolsonaro, what Trump is accomplishing is uniting the Brazilian people around the idea of national sovereignty. Lula, whose popularity was falling off in the polls before the Rio summit of the BRICS, has been able to rise from those low levels and is now achieving a level of approval in the population, including the middle class and business layers who previously opposed his administration. The support for him is also coming from abroad. China has made it quite clear that it is prepared to work with Brazil in the search for all trade alternatives to be able to elude the tariffs imposed by the United States on Brazilian products. The BRICS are, without a doubt, the answer for the future of our international trade, since China has become the main trade partner of Brazil. I believe that this is yet another war in which Trump expected to, or rather he did not expect to find any heroic resistance, but he has found that in the Brazilian government and people. Thank you very much for your attention to all of this.
Thank you, Luiz, for that important intervention and discussion of what this process has been. This is really important, a really important shift that's happening in the world. So thank you very much for joining us and bringing this to the table today. So next, to add to the discussion, I'd like to bring in Diane Sayre, who is coming off a number of important table discussions and meetings outside of the United Nations, especially during this two-state solution special meeting on Palestine and Israel. She's been out there in the forefront organizing and wanted to give a report on what happened. Do we have you on, Diane?
I think so.
Oh, there we go. I see you now.
Yes, I seem to be here. So what I can say is that the LaRouche Organization and the Schiller Institute had 2 days of rallies and activity on the outskirts of the United Nations. We chose the corner of 42nd and 2nd because it's well traversed and we can get a sound permit. there. So we had a total of about 40 people out over the 2 days of the Saudi-France conference, where we were circulating LaRouche's Oasis plan, and we had big banners calling for a ceasefire. We had one that said, "Free Palestine, build the Oasis plan." We had a Schiller Institute banner, "Large Development is the name for peace," pictures of the BRICS. And while, unfortunately in the United States, and it's unfortunate that the United Nations happens to be in the United States at this moment, because as Jose Vega found when he was leafleting in front of the UN at one point, when the delegates went in the door, the security guards tried to take their leaflets away from them, which is really outrageous. But so some people were very hesitant to accept literature, although they said that they would agree. The day I was there, Monday, we had people who were courageous enough to stop and give us their business cards from 3 different missions to the UN. We met translators, we met people at different agencies within the United Nations, and we met many New Yorkers. What I found of interest is that although we were only sort of across the street and a half a block away from the Israeli consulate, and in that proximity, you often get a lot more people who are like violently rageful toward you if you're saying things about genocide, etc. We got a very tiny handful of people who wanted to defend what Israel was doing. One woman said, "Well, I really don't think you can call it a genocide. You can't use that word, but I agree it has to end." She ended up giving money. I found out later from a fellow that I haven't been talking to that much. He had not been a supporter of my campaign when I ran for Senate, particularly. He loves Chuck Schumer, sort of a pro-Zionist, affluent New Yorker. And I happened to run into him after, and he said, I think you had a rally over there by the UN, and I saw what you were saying, and I want you to know I really appreciate it. It was very moderate, and I think we're just going to have to, we can't look back. We have to plan how to move forward. We have to plan. Now, I will say I've been thinking about this a lot. I do think we have to do something like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I don't think we can let the crimes of Israel go unacknowledged. They cannot just be forgotten. It's hideous. But you can't have revenge. And you do have to have a pathway forward, as Helga has called for the Treaty of Westphalia. So that's what I can say. We got out several hundred copies of our leaflet with the specific demands that the UN General Assembly act to reign in Israel, as they did against the South African apartheid regime, including not even seating them when they came with an all-white delegation demanding an arms embargo and these kind of things. There are things that the UN can do, and we have to hold them accountable to it. So we were getting out those list of demands and the Oasis plan card, and probably several hundred copies each day. Now, Dennis Small or Anastasia, should I introduce my guest, or is...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, please do. That's fine.
Yes. Good. So I wanted to introduce someone who actually attended the conference in Newark and who is organizing an action in September. And his name is Rafed Al-Jabouri. And he is the, I think, initiator of something called the Integrity Political Action Committee. I say good luck with that. I shouldn't laugh, but finding candidates with integrity is challenging. And he also is the founder and chairman of the UDRF, the Universal Disaster Relief Foundation. So, Rafed, I see you there. Please come in and tell people what you're planning.
Thank you so much, Diane. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the Schiller Institute also for allowing me to introduce the organization and our upcoming call to action for Gaza. I appreciate that. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. First of all, I would like to speak about the UDRF, Universal Disaster Relief Foundation, that was founded last year. And we are basically a charity, 501c3, designated as disaster relief, and we've been working in Gaza. We do, however, have campaigns for also Sudan, Congo, Yemen, Afghanistan, because they're also suffering from a lot of economical problems. The population also suffering from hunger. However, the most severe of is Gaza. We have teams on the ground and we receive reports every day. The situation in Gaza is much worse than what we see on social media and on the news. The fact is the vast majority of the population is affected by famine, not a small portion, rather the vast majority of it. Our own volunteers, they tell us if they do eat, they would eat once a day, and it is not a meal. It's either bread with something else to dip in or lentil soup, if available. And sometimes they have to skip a meal as parents in order to have enough for their kids. The death rate among newborns and prematures is astronomical. We have received 2 appeals from 2 hospitals, Shuhada al-Aqsa and Al-Rantisi, they don't have any baby formula, and they ask us to provide it. We are in the process of sourcing from inside Gaza, from the so-called black market, because of unfortunately the occupation forces enable bandits that works with them to hijack the humanitarian aid. That's the little bit of humanitarian aid that got in, which was no more than 30, 40 trucks. A couple of them were baby formula, and they were hijacked and sold in the black market. Imagine a can of milk that enough for a baby for only 1 week cost about $60 to $75. We are going to buy it at that astronomical price because we have premature babies and newborns suffering, and they are already born anemic or malnutrition because the mother was anemic and malnutrition. Therefore, their chance of survival is very low. Many of whom, within the first 2 or 3 weeks, they lose their life. And please, for those who are listening, try to spread the word about basically that, especially our campaign for baby formula. As for the political organization, Integrity Political Action Committee, and yes, I know, Diane, it's hard to find politicians with integrity, but there are still, of course, good people out there with integrity and merit that could step up. However, we know the system is rigged against any independent candidate that's willing to step up and take the mantle, basically, and the leadership and lead this country with integrity and for the best interest of the people. We have, of course, people with merit. I think yourself are one of the wonderful people who actually would do much better job than basically Trump or any other person. We're planning to have a call to action on September 15th, and we are rallying the people to show up in big numbers. We are hoping to get 1 million people at least, DC, New York, in order to force the government hand to stop the genocide and basically the using the starvation as a weapon of war. America is definitely complicit, and not just complicit, rather actively participating in this genocide. Recent testimony from Anthony Aguilar, former Special Force U.S. Army, and he was at the GHF, and he described the horrific crimes that committed by the IDF against starved civilian population, setting up checkpoint or basically, distribution points but it was set up like a pillbox for these individuals when they come in. I mean, the death toll is very high. It's incredible. Every day we have at least 40, 50, up to 100 and more getting killed in that distribution point alone. And I ask that all of you, please, to try to get in touch with us, maybe to have a discussion, have a meeting about the upcoming action on the 15th. I'm going to be honest, our organization is very young. It's 8 months ago established, and it is self-funded by us as board members. We do not have financial backers, and we would love to work with bigger organization that's able to help us plan and make this successful action for the civilian population of Gaza and to save lives. Normal protests that we've been doing for the last 2 years, it did not make a dent into or significant change into the attitude of the American government toward the genocide in Gaza. And it needs to have a stronger statement, stronger presence, and we need to have consistent action in order to make our voice heard as American citizens. And if you are up to, if you're representing organization, please consider endorsing this action. I'm going to go through the demand really quick. The first one is immediate and permanent lift of siege on Gaza. The second demand is arms embargo and reinforce ceasefire. Third, immediately evacuate all the critically injured and ill individuals. Hold, number 4, hold Israel accountable for its war crimes. And the fifth, grant immediate access to the UN and NGOs to deliver urgent humanitarian aid. Protect the civilian population from the IDF and immediate removal of GHF, which is Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. I don't want to take too much from your time because there's a lot of other speakers, but please reach out to us. Let's have a discussion. We're willing to collaborate and work with anybody. And even if an organization would like to take the lead on that call to action and they are better equipped than us, which of course they will be because we're really new, they can obviously do that. That is absolutely fine as long as we have successful action to have a real impact on the political decision coming from the White House. And the genocide has to stop. The starvation has to stop. No human being deserves to die from starvation, let alone a child, a baby, when his organ shuts down one after another. And if they're lucky, their heart goes out before their lungs, rather than having their lungs go last and suffocate and not able to breathe. Please help us help those people and make a stand and make an impactful change in this country. And we're done with having this country work for the benefit of oligarchy and the billionaires. Regular people in the United States also are suffering. It is not just the war abroad or the genocide abroad, but also for the future of this country. Thank you so much. Our website is ipac7.org. And the humanitarian aid is udrf.org. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hand it over to the host. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rafed, for that important discussion of what you're doing. I just shared the website that you listed into the chat, and I didn't catch the second one that you said. What was the second website?
It is udrf.org. U as uniform, D as Delta, R Romeo, F Foxtrot.
Got it. udrf.org, and I just shared that as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm sure
you.
many people in this forum are going to be checking out what you're doing and considering signing on. So thank you for sharing this with us.
I appreciate
I look forward to seeing the turnout of it.
Likewise, thank you.
Okay, so finally, we have one more report from myself. I'm just coming back on a trip to China where they held a 2-day conference, a World Youth Conference for Peace, which is the first conference they've held for this. And this is an initiative from the president of China, President Xi Jinping. And I'll just share with you some images from the conference itself. I had the opportunity to speak at the roundtable discussion with a number of youth. There was 3,000 youth who ended up attending this from all over the world, from all 5 continents, or excuse me, all 4 continents. I'm sure if Antarctica had a lot of people, they would have attended as well. But the main focus, I would say, at this World Peace Conference for youth was around the importance of the Global South and the importance of youth from the Global South to intervene to stop war. And I can't emphasize this enough, they underscored this explicitly, that the only way to have peace, sustainable peace, is through economic development. And there was an initiative at the very end of the meeting which was put forward, which was a call out of a commitment of all the 3,000 youth who attended to organize for that, for economic development and mutual benefits of all nations and collaboration of all peoples towards that end. This was very important. There was a number of presentations from top leaders, people in their 20s and early 30s, around what they're doing in their countries for peace and economic development and bridging discussion amongst differing organizations and thoughts. I was particularly moved by the cultural panel. There was a number of presentations from various young people around the world of their own cultures for each other, to have this this dialogue amongst one another and respect for each other's national cultural heritage. One very interesting presentation that came up, which really stood out to me, was a youth delegation from Japan who sang the sakura flower song. It's very beautiful. Definitely recommend looking it up. But it was incredibly moving for the Chinese students, Chinese people who were there, who people may not realize, but China lost millions and millions of people during the World War II, and Japan has never apologized for what had happened. And this cultural exchange of the students with the Chinese students was incredibly beautiful. And I looked around and many Chinese people were crying, very moved by the fact that the young people of Japan were offering this as a presentation to them. So yes, we received a message from President Xi Jinping himself on the importance of peace and his 3 global initiatives. The Global Initiative for Development, Global Initiative for Security, and Global Cultural Initiative, which was highlighted throughout the conference itself. So I think that what I really got a sense of at this meeting, and I'll stop share here, what I really got a sense of at this meeting was that there's an expression coming not just from China, but from organizations and youth from the Global South, that they want to find through whatever peaceful means necessary, some way to reach out to people, to other nations that may seem that they're opposing, to find some ways of collaboration and bridging these discussions. And there was a number of ideas about how to do that. There was a number of discussions around what kind of projects could be worked on. And I think that this is a really important shift that's going to create a lot um, of ripples and resonance amongst people around the world, because this was not hostile, actually. This was people of many different nations and cultures talking about how to collaborate towards this end of peace through economic development. So I just want to close with that. And this is one of many meetings, is what they were talking about, that this is not the end of it. So I think that this is very important. And I think that what we're doing with the International Peace Coalition is definitely going to be taking a big role in this kind of potential in the world right now. We really need to mobilize people in Europe and the United States around this mobilizing the youth for this kind of concept. So I'll close with that and go back to you, Helga, if you have any responses or thoughts from the discussion thus far.
Yes. I think what has been said by various people underscores the urgency, and I really mean urgency, that we redouble and multiply our efforts to unify the international peace movement. Because first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Luiz from Brazil, for what you said about that the BRICS would be open for the United States and other Western countries to join, because I think that that is, in my understanding, the absolute only way how we will get out of this quagmire and escalation, if we convince the United States and European nations that they should cooperate with the BRICS in formal ways and not formal ways, but stop this geopolitics and not regard the BRICS as an enemy, but as a partner. I think that's in my book, that's the only way how we will get out of this. And secondly, I want to answer to the person from the IPAC that, the march you are planning for the 15th of September, we should all support. But I just participated in a preparatory talk for the German peace movement. I mean, there are some other groups other than ourselves who want to organize a big nationwide demonstration on October 3rd in Stuttgart and Berlin. And they are asking everybody to join in helping to make that the big one. I think we need to unify all of these efforts and not just wait until 15th of September or 3rd of October, because the crisis is now. And I would really say we should go out of this present discussion of the IPC with a solemn commitment that each of us brings in, whatever we are in contact with elsewhere into one single unified force. Because I think unless we do that, the forces will be separated and not strong enough. But if we unite on these demands, like that the West should join the BRICS, and that, we need the limelight on the end of the killing and genocide in Gaza. I think that has to be a unified demand from everybody, and only we can facilitate such an effort. So that would be my very concrete appeal to all of you.
Great, thank you, Helga. And I'll just ask if there's a response maybe from Luis or anybody from the discussion before we move on to the general discussion with the audience. If not, we can continue. Okay, we'll continue. So,
Mr. Luis wants to talk.
Go ahead. I see you're muted. Go ahead.
Sí, sí, sí. Sí. Yo creo también que ese es el camino para
I do think that that's the way for the West and the East to be able to join in order to find a new order where where we have a new policy and a new economy. We also presented a proposal of experts and investigate in the universities, in several universities, how we can have a permanent place. And this city is a cosmopolitan city in the southern hemisphere. In the Western Hemisphere, and BRICS now does not have its own place. And you cannot send a letter to BRICS because it doesn't have an address. So BRICS needs a place in the Western Hemisphere. So we could not say that the BRICS is an organization against the West. We should support this proposal. Was welcomed by the mayor of Rio de Janeiro, who also presented the city, and in which he says they could be the place of the BRICS. I'm not sure if I was understood.
Let me just clarify one point, because I did discuss this with Luis yesterday and with Tim Rush. The proposal is that the BRICS should have a permanent secretariat or a permanent headquarters, and the specific proposal is that that should be in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, for all of the reasons which he just explained, in terms of having a location in the Western Hemisphere, which is clearly not anti-West. So that's the specific proposal. I believe that Rafed Al-Jabouri has also raised his hand. He may want to also respond to what Helga said. So why don't you go ahead, Rafed?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I would like to respond to Helga about basically uniting on action. Yes, of course. We are all for it. We would like actually to basically have a collaborative effort and to plan it better, or even add to it more, because I do believe myself that making a statement and a stand and the type of action needs to be unlike anything that happened before in order to have an impact. And we are open to basically, as I said, to collaborate with anybody. And I would like it to be sooner. As Helga said, the urgent need is now, and it is. But we didn't want to propose earlier date, because many would say there's not enough time for the rally and advertising and promoting and getting that many people out, or a good number of people out. So please do, and if your institution would like to schedule a meeting that we could have with other organizations that are planning on type of action to stop the genocide, we would love to be part of it and to work with them and collaborate on this. Thank you so much.
Yes, that sounds great. I think that would be an excellent idea. Thank you. Okay, any other responses? Okay. Just interrupt me if anyone wants to jump in quickly. Sorry, I couldn't see the hand raised. I've got a few windows open here. Okay, so we're going to move on to the discussion period. People who are on over YouTube, X, Rumble, whatever wherever this is being broadcast, if you'd like to join the discussion period, you must be registered. You can go to the schillerinstitute.com And right on the top of the website, there is a page to RSVP for the International Peace Coalition. Please go to that and you will receive the Zoom link for the meeting. And with that, Dave, just